Hello and welcome to The Big Picture, the show on RCTV where we talk about sports and we talk about all sorts of big picture issues in sports. My name is Kevin Vent and I am the host of our show, and I'm joined tonight by Marcel Dubois. Welcome, Marcel.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you.
As well as being a sports enthusiast in our area, Marcel is also the host of his own RCTV show, and that is Reading Tales.
Reading Tales, that's correct.
All right, well, it's a great show, and if you have the opportunity to watch Reading Tales, we ask you to take a look at it and enjoy what he has to share. It's about dogs and Reading and their owners and some of the special things that they do, and it is actually quite interesting.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you.
So it's worth a watch, but right now you're watching my show, so stay with that.
All right. Any dogs on the show? No,
there are no dogs.
Okay.
No dogs on the set or anything like that. Well, it's great to be here tonight, and we welcome you to The Big Picture. As I said, my name is Kevin Vent, and we're going to be talking about sports. Specifically, I want to start with tonight, and is a sport that I have virtually no love for and have difficulty understanding a little bit. And so one of the reasons Marcel is on tonight is because he's a big fan of this sport. This sport is where men drive around in cars around a circle approximately 250 to 500 times, depending on the track. And as I was saying to Marcel earlier when we were prepping this show, I can understand why it's exciting for the last lap or two, but the previous 4 hours I can't get into. So Marcel, you are here tonight to educate me. So why do you enjoy NASCAR?
Okay. First thing I must correct you, it's not a circle, it's an oval. So
okay,
it's actually
right, there we go.
And you know what it is with NASCAR, it's you have to really see it live to really appreciate it. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, no matter if you have high def or what size your screen is, you really have to see a race up close.
All right.
At New Hampshire International Speedway, which is the closest track to us, we go there twice a year, my wife and I. My wife is a big fan as well. And we go up there twice a year, and you can stand about 8 feet from where the cars are going past at about 162 miles an hour. And that's 43 cars at full speed.
So how long does it take between when the first car passes you and the last car passes you?
Actually, it's a great question. At Daytona, you can clock all 43 cars that went past the screen, the same start-finish line, with under 3 seconds.
Wow.
It's 192 miles an hour is the average speed, so they're really moving. Yep. I think it's also something you don't see on TV, is when you're at a NASCAR race live, you get to listen in on the teams.
Okay.
That's the part that really catches your interest at a track. You can follow any team you want. You can see the pits from pretty much, from the stands, but it's being able to listen to the teams. Every team has scanners. So they talk, the crew chief controls sort of the pit team and so on. They talk to the drivers and they tell them, we're going to pit in this many laps. The driver will talk back to the crew chief saying what's wrong with the car. And there's also pit strategies that go with that. NASCAR's not just about the top speed. It's about strategy. It's about getting in and out of the pits on time. It's not messing up in the pits. That's a big problem. If you come out too late, you'll end up a lap down, which means you're behind the lead pack and so on. So you can listen to all that on the radio and really appreciate. What I do is I'm sort of the executive producer when we go to a track.
Okay.
We'll have our headsets, we'll have our scanner, we'll program in all the drivers' channels, and most of them have 2 or 3 channels.
All right.
And once you program it in, you can actually say, okay, I want to listen to Tony Stewart, so you program his number and listen to what he's saying. And then if you see an accident on the track, which unfortunately is just like hockey with fighting.
A little bit of a draw.
People love to see the accidents.
Of course, it's unfortunate if something happens to one of the drivers.
It is absolutely, but it's also cool to see it live. It's pretty cool. But you can switch to the driver in the accident and get his response. You'll never hear that on TV.
I wouldn't think some of it would be appropriate for TV.
Most of it isn't. But it really makes it interesting. In fact, a while back when I was doing a lot of videotaping, I actually recorded some of the audio from those communications on my video camera. So what you're getting is the video that you see on the track with the audio from the. And you know what it is? There's also different size tracks. Everybody knows Daytona. But Daytona for a NASCAR fan is not really the best race of the year.
Interesting, even though it's considered the World Series of NASCAR.
Yeah, it's not the best race. The best race to a real NASCAR fan is the Bristol night race.
Really?
If you're it's a short track. Now there's intermediate tracks, 1.5 miles. There's the big tracks, the Talladegas and the Daytonas at 2.5 miles. The New Hampshire's intermediate at 1 mile. But then the small tracks. That's the sort of the background of NASCAR.
Okay.
These guys started off racing on small dirt tracks, 3/8 mile, half mile.
Sure.
Bristol, Tennessee has just over a half a mile banked oval at 36 degrees.
36 degrees.
36 degrees in the turns.
Okay.
The straightaways are 12 degrees.
Okay, so even the straightaways are angled.
It's the same banking as New Hampshire on the
Okay.
turns. What that means is you're looking at a bowl, and the stands completely surround the track. It's the most, and plus they race it under the lights at night.
Sure.
So the August night race for Bristol is the best race of the year. It's 124 mile an hour laps, pretty fast for half a mile.
Yeah.
Banging out, cars are banging, and there's always, every car ends that race totally in disrepair.
So let me ask you this question. Obviously, speed is one of the draws.
Absolutely.
Feeling the speed, feeling the wind as the cars go by, and so on and so forth. How much are you able to kind of see the strategy of what the drivers and the pit crews are doing when you're at a live event? Because there's got to be, as you said, there's got to be strategy involved with when to pit, when not to pit, how to, this kind of thing, when to make your move to the front, so on and so forth. How much of that can you kind of predict or discuss in the stands, or would you do this, would you do that?
Yeah, you can to a certain point. What you'll notice is teams will, as a car starts to add laps on their tires, it's all about the tire and the grip.
Yeah.
So as the laps start to progress, you get 30, 40, 50 laps into a run, as they call it.
Sure.
You get more grip, and then the grip goes away. So a fresh set of tires will be the less grip, and as the heat gets into the tires, it gets better, but then it just quickly dissipates and it's just completely empty. You can tell cars will actually start to get lapped or start to get passed.
Okay.
Some drivers are better low, some drivers prefer the high line or whatever.
Okay.
And what you'll notice is you can see that. You can see people start to get passed. And if your favorite driver gets passed by more than 3 or 4 or 5 drivers without an accident, without any type of problem with the car, there's an issue. Usually it's a handling issue, but again, getting back to the radio, you can listen in and definitely confirm Tony Stewart's loose in the turns and he can't, which means loose and tight is also a term you'll hear on NASCAR.
Okay.
Loose meaning the car turns too easily.
Okay.
Tight means it's
Too hard to turn. Yeah.
And quite frankly, loose is better, as from the movie Days of Thunder, loose is fast. And it's true, because you want to have the car turn quickly, but that means the rear end will come around. So there's that fine balance of grip and so on.
So can you tell that certain drivers have certain skill sets above other drivers? Certain drivers are good at the turns, certain drivers are really good at making a pass on a straightaway, certain, that kind of thing. Can you tell the difference between the drivers in that way?
Can, mostly for different tracks. Some drivers are better at the big tracks. Some drivers prefer the big open, what they call restrictor plate racing, which means they restrict the horsepower in the motor. Okay. So Daytona and Talladega are restrictor plate races. There's not the full horsepower available to the driver. Right. They go from 750 horsepower down to about 450. And they're still doing 196 miles an hour. Right. So you can imagine if they took the restrictor plate. It actually restricts the flow of air and flow of gas into the carburetor, which actually placed as a spacer. So some drivers are better at the big speedways. They like to draft. Drafting is another term. Coming up close behind the driver.
Right. Letting him take the friction from the wind while they do the same thing in horse racing. Actually, even in track and field. They do the same thing in track and field.
Exact same thing. So some drivers are better with short tracks, and that goes back to their roots. Some of those drivers grew up on short tracks, 3/8 mile, and they love the banging and the car out of control, and they love that loose feeling and stuff. So it really depends. You can if you follow it enough, you can almost look forward or not look forward to the next race, depending on what your driver likes to do.
Okay. How do you pick a favorite driver?
That's a great question. NASCAR is one of those sports where it's all about the look and feel of the car, sometimes even the number.
Sure.
Drivers are really what people root for, but it's also the sponsor.
Yeah.
For example, I like Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart's been my
you
favorite
referenced him a couple times, so I assume there was a thing there.
He used to be with Home Depot. I mean, I'm sorry, with Home Depot when he was a rookie. Yeah. And I love Home Depot, so that was great. Okay. Then he moved on and he got Old Spice, so I started buying Old Spice deodorant and blah blah blah. And now he's with Mobil 1, which is the gas that I use and so on. And I don't change with the driver, but. You will see the colors of the driver in the fans. People will wear the attire of the Mountain Dew. Dale Jr. is the Mountain Dew car, and right now Danica Patrick's big with GoDaddy for her.
For commercials and all that. Yeah,
absolutely. So name recognition's big, and placement on the car, which is what you see. The design of the car is critical. You pay more money depending on where the sticker is located on the car. Sure.
How much does the brand of the vehicle actually being used, do you think, make a difference, whether it's a Ford or a Chevy or a Toyota or whatever?
That's a great question. Up through this year, it didn't matter at all. Okay. This is the first year where they actually went back to the same templates of the actual production cars.
Okay.
So you take for example, a Chevy SS, which is a brand new car coming out next year, I believe. That, if you took a template, a cutout of the actual production car and placed it on the race car, it's exact.
Okay, all right, interesting.
Which means the air ducting in front is a match, the rear deck lid, the slope of the front windshield is exact. Now, in the years past, sort of the body of the car was all the same. They just put just different decals and nose pieces. And the cars really pretty much ran the same.
Right.
Now they don't have that. Now it's really back to the old days. Race on Sunday, sell on Monday.
Okay, yeah.
They would actually sell a Fireball Roberts back in the 50s, one with his Ford Mercury. They were selling them on Monday because the car looked like the production car.
Sure.
And they've kind of gone back to that, which is pretty exciting.
So it used to be more of a marketing thing. They just slap a Toyota or a Honda symbol on the front of the car, but basically the car really wasn't a Toyota or a Honda.
It really wasn't. The only the motor is, though, done by the manufacturer. So when you see a Ford, it is a Ford motor. And then when you do of course, a GM motor. And then Toyota has their own race and development division. So that part is true, but up until this year, it was pretty much non-existent. Interesting.
Very, very interesting. So, you know, obviously, when we talk about drivers and we talk about determination as to when they should pit or when they should pass or when they should make a move, et cetera, that kind of thing. Obviously, pit stops are important because you can win or lose a race in the pits.
That's correct.
Based on the speed of your team what are some of the other factors that are involved with a quality pit stop besides just being really fast?
Well, what a lot of people don't know is a typical NASCAR pit stop is basically you're changing 5 lug nuts per tire.
Right.
Now, the lug nuts are actually secured to the tire going on the car, but you still have to remove every single lug nut or loosen every lug nut to take the tire off. It's not like one single bolt like IndyCar or Formula One.
Okay, right.
You got 2 guys to do the tires. You have 1 jack man, and the jack is a 1-pump jack, which means when they put it under a certain point of the car, 1 pump and the car is up.
Lifts the whole car.
It's all time. You have to have that choreographed to a point where you can't waste any time. 13.5 seconds for 4 tires, 22 gallons of gas. Take either clean the windshield or remove the tear off that they remove. Make adjustments to the car. All the adjustments are done from the outside. They'll have Allen wrenches or bolt, basically wrenches that go in and turn. You can adjust the suspension from the back windshield. There's a post that goes down to the car, and you can change you can actually add spring rubbers if you want. Spring rubbers are actually sort of inserts inside the tire rubber, which provides more friction, lesser, more grip. Now, what they also adjust a lot when you're out of race and you hear this, tire pressure is huge. It's huge for these cars. 1 pound of tire pressure makes a huge difference.
I would think it would add weight to the vehicle.
Well, what it does is it basically allows more traction either inside or outside the car. And the left side of the car wears out because they're pretty much going left. And that oval. So 1 pound in the left front or the right front will really make a difference in the way the car handles. And so that's all precision. It's not the same type of tire gauge you use to check your tires.
Right, to check your
oil. It's basically a professional gauge where it's basically protected with oil, so it actually provides the most accurate reading. And they have to do all that in 13 seconds, and it's quite amazing. If you're going to take video at a track, do the pit stops.
Do the pits.
It's really amazing to see live. It really is.
Well, NASCAR, a little bit of explanation as to why NASCAR is a fun sport for Marcel, and maybe we'll give that a try at the New Hampshire Speedway sometime in the near future and feel the wind as the cars go by in 3.7 seconds on a what you said is a mile track,
up
in New Hampshire. All right, excellent. Well, we are out of time in the first half here in the big picture. We hope you've enjoyed our discussion about NASCAR. We're going to come back in the second half and talk about some sports that I know something about because it is my show after all. You have been watching The Big Picture with Kevin Vent. We're going to have a break here where we're going to hear from a couple of our friends, and we'll be back in just a moment. Abundant Life Christian School is a school committed to the nurture of the whole child, academically, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Our staff have been called by God to enter the teaching profession. As evidence of God's call, they are dedicated to and gifted in the task of helping parents grow kids God's way. Academically, students are engaged in the combination of the best of both worlds, tradition and innovation. Character values are emphasized throughout days that focus on a broad educational experience and a strong academic foundation. To learn more about Abundant Life Christian School, please go to our website at www.ablifeschool.org. Hello, welcome back to The Big Picture. We were talking NASCAR in the first half. We're going to get back to something I'm a little more comfortable with in the second half. We're going to talk a little NFL football because, he's talked too much about gears and tires and cars. Right. I lose track of.
We didn't talk about gears, but we can.
We didn't really talk about gears. We did talk about Allen wrenches, though. I don't know a whole lot about that either.
That's true.
Anyway, we are going to talk a little bit about NFL football and specifically our New England Patriots. They are in the off season at this point, and I have to be honest with you, Marcel, it's been an off season that kind of feels more like what we've lost as opposed to what we've gained. Some of your thoughts, just as how are the Patriots doing this off season so far?
I was hoping they would really investigate getting some kind of wide receiver that can stretch the field. When I heard that Brendan Lloyd had left or wasn't re-signed or whatever, and then also heard that may have been a problem in the locker room. Those are things they all come together right at the end, and you realize why. But
you wonder how much of that is spin, from
absolutely.
the organization, or how much of it is actually true.
And as a fan, I'm like, I don't care if he's you need someone like a Randy Moss that wasn't here long enough, and so on and so forth. And our Irvin Fryer, where's our Irvin Fryer?
Irving Fryer, but David Patton.
David Patton, yeah, sure, exactly. The thing is with Brady, his time is really. We're down to a few years left. Not only in his contract, but just in his ability and so on. And it's such a shame. I don't think we're ahead. I'm not too sure we're that far behind where we were, but in losing Welker, obviously. But supposedly Amendola, if he stays healthy, is just is the same. He's younger. Right. They spoke highly of him in St. Louis and so on, but I don't know.
I agree. I think Brady's window is really only maybe a year, two. I'm going to give him 2 years of quality. I think his contract is longer, but I think of the high quality, top quality quarterbacking we've been seeing, I think maybe 2 years max. So really that window is 2 years to win another Super Bowl. Right. I think they'll probably still contend for the playoffs after that time period, but really to contend for the Super Bowl with the inevitable diminishment of his skills is a couple of years. So, the loss of Welker, I think, is a big one. I agree with you about Amendola, but again, he's a short receiver, and my concern is, as you said, the lack of being able to spread the field. Right. What the defenses are going to do is they're just going to collapse into that first 20 yards away from the line of scrimmage, and they're going to say, go ahead, beat us with the long ball. So unless they're planning on a wide receiver in the draft, I just don't see it happening. Amendola is a good guy, but he is injury prone. And I think
it's a big problem, big question.
Whatever you could say about how Welker plays the game, and you could say a lot of good things. I mean, the guy played every single game except that one playoff game when we had a torn ACL. Right. And he was right back on the field again right after that. So
and you notice with Welker's catches, he was always getting just
getting drilled.
Getting
drilled.
Tough as they get up from these, it was just amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, they did pick up Jenkins from Minnesota. 40 receptions, 449 yards. That's pretty good.
Not bad.
And maybe with Brady he'll be better. But my understanding is he is not a spread the field kind of guy. Also, so you're going to be packing the short part of the field with Amendola and with a Jenkins and with Gronkowski and Hernandez and
if Edelman comes back, maybe Edelman could do some of that. Because remember when he came out, right? He was considered
he was like Wes Welker light.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah. He's also injury prone now as well.
Sure.
But, I mean, if he comes back. I don't think he's signed, right? He's a free agent.
I believe I think he's in that quasi, not free agent, but he's not signed.
He's kind
of
so
in that
available
area.
if they want to pick him up. But that would be in it. He could also do kick returns and so on. But
sure.
I don't know. The thing is, what really confuses me about the Patriots and their receiving core is why is it so difficult to pick up the offense? Chad Ochocinco wasn't he supposed to be the answer?
He was supposed to be the answer,
What happened?
And then Brendan Lloyd was supposed to be the answer.
Is it so complex? I mean, when you draw it up when you're playing in the backyard, What is that? What could be?
Well, I choose to think that the NFL offense is a little more complex than what we do in the backyard.
But in theory, these are professional athletes.
Right.
They're professional receivers. That's what they do.
And it's all they have to do. And how
That's all
someone
they
can't
have to
pick up
do.
the playbook and learn the plays when that is their job.
He would have been the great wideout that we were looking for.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and I don't. It really,
I think with Ocho Cinco, it was a combination of a diminishment of skills also.
Sure, absolutely.
His skills weren't what they had been. Obviously, they couldn't have been what they were early in his career. And whether they didn't want to acknowledge that, and so they just said, oh, he can't learn the playbook, and therefore,
Sure.
He's not smart enough to learn the playbook, or it's too complex, or whatever. I don't know what it was.
Right,
So it's either that, and they were covering for that, or he genuinely just wasn't capable of doing it for whatever
how many
reason.
routes was he not turned in instead of turning out?
I think part of it is with the Patriots offense is they're required not simply just to run the route they're given, but they are required to know what they're supposed to do if something different happens.
That's correct.
And they're not the only offense that does that.
That's correct.
But if Brady has to escape from the pocket this way, or they're supposed to do this,
That's
or
correct.
if the defense is doing that, you're supposed to adjust
That's
this
correct.
way.
That's correct.
And I know there are many NFL offenses that don't do that, especially those crybaby wide receiver long guys. What do? You go long, like the old
That's
Bill
it.
Cosby
Don't
thing.
turn
That's
around
what they do. You go long.
You count.
You count and you go long and you turn
put
around.
your hands up and that ball will get out.
Right. So when they have to adapt to do something different than they're used to, they have a problem with that. But
Yeah.
I am concerned. I think the running game came along great last year,
Absolutely.
and hopefully that continues, and maybe that can disguise. But again, if they're going to be able to put so many defenders in the box, so to speak, because they can shorten up on the passing game, that's going to affect the run game as well.
We still have the tight ends, which are tremendous. Gronkowski with the injury, though, that really concerns me. Isn't it true that he's been out last year?
Both last year and this year with some kind of season-ending injury. He did. He had. The interesting is they're both injuries that were like bone injuries.
Right.
He had the broken ankle and the broken arm, and so sometimes you give a pass to those. It's not like he runs a little too fast and pulls a groin and he's done. Like a lot of these guys.
Right.
They're legitimate.
And no concussions, thankfully.
And no concussions or anything like that. Though I don't know how you'd tell with him.
Well, it could have.
He seems like a nice guy. I'm not necessarily sure he's the brightest bulb in the pack, but
it's all about the helmet.
It's all about the helmet. But it's hard to tell. Oh, you have a broken arm. Yes, you have a broken arm.
Yeah.
You can't play football.
You'd have to tell him, because I don't think he would.
Right, but I do think he had the broken arm last year. He came back for the one game. It was the second play of the game or something like that. He landed on the same arm again.
On the same arm. Can you believe that?
And he was out of bounds. It
I
doesn't
know.
take a lot of brains to say maybe I'll land on the other arm.
I'll let the one go. I'll just let it go. It was
or just let it go. It's
wasn't
not
a
a bounce.
catch.
It's not catchable anyway.
It wasn't a catch. That's right.
So anyway, defensively, what do you think about the Patriots? Again, they don't seem to have done a lot.
Yeah, I keep hearing that what wins football games, offense or defense. Is it unreasonable to think that a team like the Patriots can't score more than 17 or 21 points in a playoff game?
Right.
And it's okay for the regular season. We seem to get by okay. But we were what were we last year in terms of points allowed? We were better than we were the year before.
In points allowed, we were middle of the pack.
And in terms of yards, though, I thought the yardage was down too, wasn't it? It wasn't as bad as it was the year before.
The yardage allowed was, I think they were second or third worst in the league.
Were they? Okay, still, I thought they had improved on that.
Points allowed, they were like 13 or 14.
Okay. I think with re-signing Talib was a huge piece because I don't think they've made any strides to get better, but I think they stayed the same.
Okay.
Because we lost Patrick Chung, but then we brought in who was the safety that we brought in? Is it Abraham from?
Oh yeah, Abraham
from
Atlanta.
From Atlanta, right? Exactly. I think it's a trade-off. We re-signed who we had to re-sign. Maybe the draft is the secret weapon here. I don't know.
The only thing I can hope with when I talk about the Patriots is just that hopefully maybe they're eyeing the draft and they really see either a deep receiver that they just love in the draft, or they see a defensive back that they just think is the best thing since sliced bread in the draft, or something like that, or a linebacker who can really cover the middle there. Their middle linebackers are pretty good, but I don't know. Maybe they're seeing something that you and I aren't privy to.
Yeah, and it's pressure on the quarterback, which I still don't know if they've gotten over. They have, with last year I thought was improved.
But it wasn't great.
It wasn't great. You just can't let these quarterbacks 5, 6, 7 seconds to throw. I don't think any cornerback will be able to protect that long. There's a certain stride, right? A certain rhythm to the pass, and if you got him covered for that length of time, you're in. But if you let him have a second read or a second look at a different play, You can't keep up with
and
that.
how many times did you see an opposing quarterback last year look at his first, his second, his third,
I've seen him-
fourth read every single play? I mean, eventually one of those guys is going to be open.
Of course.
And they'll have to be open one out of every 4 plays.
Absolutely. That's right.
You know?
That's right. Absolutely. So pressure on the quarterback, I think, is really. I think the corners will be okay. I think the safeties, not anything like Rodney Harrison, but that's okay. But I think if we get pressure, get somebody from the outside, or I don't know. I don't know if that's going to come from Chandler Jones, and maybe he might move out, or I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where it's going to come from.
I think one of the things you've noticed the trends in the NFL is that more and more the quarterbacks kind of aren't able to handle that pressure. If you can get pressure in their face, within a second or two, they don't know how to handle it.
Disrupt the rhythm. That's right.
And even the so-called scrambling quarterbacks. You saw Kaepernick for San Francisco and all that kind of thing.
Right.
Seemed like it, had that skill, but at the same time, if you brought it right up the middle against him, or or could contain him from the sides, really, still when you look at it, Brady and Manning are the best in the league at handling pressure.
That's right. That's right.
And the others can't seem to do it for whatever reason.
Remember a few years ago when Michael Vick was playing with when he was playing for Atlanta, we played them. I think it was in Foxborough. And here's this probably the most mobile quarterback you're going to find, the most athletic, incredible arm. If you've ever seen Michael Vick, he's just incredible. And the Patriots played him. He didn't do anything else.
He didn't do anything.
They were able to get pressure on him, and he was just complete. If he's out of his element, he's not going to be as successful. So, so you can, if you can contain him, I think you can do. I just don't think I don't think they took a step forward, but I'd say they were about even, which is not really what you want in an offseason.
Yeah. So at this point in time, there don't really seem to be any free agent wide receivers left, or free agent DBs they can really go after, or even free agent pass rushers. So I think they're really looking at the draft to help them with that. And so as a fan, notice the jersey, as a fan, I'm hoping that in the draft they can actually pick something up and do pretty well there. And we'll see. So pay attention to draft night if you're a Patriots fan.
Absolutely.
And we'll find out what they're going to do. Well, we're just about out of time here in the second half of The Big Picture. I thank Marcel Dubois for being on the show today. And again, if you want to watch his show, Reading Tales, it's a great show. It's all about dogs and Reading dogs. Tuesdays at 8 p.m. You can pick that show up and watch that, and he does a terrific job with that. So thank you for being on. Thank you for schooling us on NASCAR and giving a little insight in the NFL. My name is Kevin Vent. I am the host of The Big Picture. I trust that you'll have a terrific day. Take care.